Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Live around the world on the internet at MichaelDukesShow.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Hello, my friends, and good morning to you from the wet and warm capital of Homer, Alaska, on top of the world down here, broadcasting across the state of Alaska and, of course, on the internet as well. Don't forget, you can find us on our social medias at Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble, where we simulcast the radio show each and every day to folks out there who care, because, you know, that's all what it's all about. We're continuing, and I hope you had a great weekend here as we get ready to dive into more discussions. Today, it's early voting in both the interior and down on the Kenai Peninsula. In the MatSu's, they have realigned their election, so got to be a little bit here until they have early voting in the MatSu's, but pretty much everywhere else in the state, it's early voting starting today. And that's good stuff because we are continuing our discussions with local candidates from around the state today. We're kind of going all over the place. We're going to start off here in hour one. In the MatSu's with school board candidate Dena McChargue. I hope I didn't just crush that name. I hope I just didn't destroy it. McChargue. Dena is going to be joining us here in just a minute to talk about the school board. And then in hour two, we're moving up to the interior, where we will be talking with Bret Rotermund, who is running for re-election for the Fairbanks North Star Borough Assembly. So that's what's coming up on tomorrow. I guess I should just give you a tease. For tomorrow, we're going to be dealing with, of course, Brad Keithley and Chris Story. And then on Wednesday, it looks like we're going to be talking with Maxwell Sumner. Fingers crossed that comes through. And then in hour two, we're going to be talking with Laura Reinbold. Wow. There's a blast from the past. Haven't heard from her in a hot minute. Laura Reinbold will be joining us, along with Dr. Ryan Cole and Michael Ashley, all in a three-way interview about a big event that they've got coming up as well. And then we will, on Thursday, we're going to talk with Gail Klaus and John Mink from down here on the peninsula about their runs as well. So lots of stuff going on. And we appreciate you guys tuning in and joining us. Again, hope you had a great weekend. Hope it was restive, restorative. Hope you got a lot of stuff done because the white stuff is coming. I'm just saying, you know, in case you were wondering, that termination dust is in the air there somewhere. And so you got to make sure, especially up in the interior, you guys got to make sure everything's battened down for the big winter that's coming. So, I mean, I didn't want to be the Debbie Downer for you, but I just try to help. Just be that guy. All right. Well, without further ado, let's get into this and let's get started. And we will kick off our discussions here in the MatSu's for Borough School Board, and that is Dena. I'm gonna kill it. Here it is, Dena McChargue. I hope that's right, but we're gonna find out right now. Joined just this morning to discuss her run for the school board. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing well, thanks. How about you guys?
Good. Thanks much. Okay, so everybody wants to know, did I do it right, Dena?
Yeah, I think you did it better than I did when I first learned how to say it too. The H is silent, so it's Dena McChargue.
Dena
Or just,
McChargue.
yeah, or just Dena.
Okay, or just Dena. All right, Dena McChargue. Okay, so remove the H and we're good to go.
There you go.
All right, Dena. Well, you're you're running for school board here in the MatSu, which we just had some conversations here over the last few weeks about how MatSu is kind of the shining star in the whole state as far as how you guys have been doing scholastically and with your budgets and everything else. So I guess this is a good time to crack into it. So first and foremost, let's talk a little bit about, who you are, where you came from, and we'll continue on for there. So for folks who don't know who you are and need some backstory, give us a little bit of your origin here and what folks can expect from you here is, from your history.
Great. Well, I'm a lifelong Alaskan resident. I grew up in rural Southeast Alaska on the island of Wrangell. And I moved to the MatSu 17 years ago and started a family around then. And then during COVID, we moved to Talkeetna. So I currently live in Talkeetna, and I'm running for an open seat on the school board, which is District 7. It's the largest district in our, it's the largest district in our borough. It's really rural. It goes from just north of Wasilla, Meadow Lakes area, all the way out to the Yentna River and Skwetna, and then wraps, it includes Willow, Houston, Talkeetna, then wraps around all the way to the other side to the Glen Highway, and includes Glacier View and the Lake Louise area. So it's a really big district. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, well, nothing is small in Alaska, it seems like, including all the districts as well. What's your work background or your expertise background? Do you have something like that for us there?
Yeah. So I am a adjunct instructor at the University of Alaska Anchorage. I teach in the culinary arts department. That's my background, is hospitality and food culinary arts. And I commute in several times a year to teach short 1-credit courses there at the university. Other than that, I'm mostly mom. I've held a few miscellaneous positions around the borough while raising my 2 kids that are high school age. And this summer, I started a food truck. So I'm just coming off of that, having a food truck downtown Talkeetna and transitioning back to mostly mom.
Well, you could have stopped at just mom. We know that that's kind of some good background to have there as well. All right. Well, so, first and foremost, I have to ask, because this is one of my favorite questions to ask. To ask any candidate out there, especially when they're kind of brand new, is, when exactly did you lose your mind? I mean, what was the reason? Was it, because I'm always interested in kind of like that jumping off point. Was it something cumulative? Was there a bunch of different things? It was just kind of like, I just had to do it. Or was there a single issue that just made you, that was the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak, and you were like, I've got to do something about this? What made you decide to come from being a teacher and a mom and everything else to, I'll take all my extra spare time and throw it into this? What made you do that?
Yeah, we have an hour, right? So
yeah, exactly.
I can definitely pinpoint my losing my mind to a very specific catalyst event. And that was a little over 3 years ago. I had some concerns about my kids' education. We were enrolled in public school at the time. We have homeschooled in the past, but we were back in public school. And I brought a handful of concerns forward to administration and asked, hey, how do parents give feedback about these things? And I was told that it's too complicated for parents to have an opinion, and that we don't. And so that was a very big eye-opening moment for me to hear from administration that parents' voices aren't prioritized or even considered, that the issue was too complicated, which I in turn inferred as I wasn't smart enough or I was too dumb to be able to participate in this issue. So I went above administration. I looked at what the school board's agenda and different things was, and it just so happened coincidentally that one of my issues was on their agenda, and I drove 70 miles to the school board meeting and said my piece. And after advocating for a few weeks for one issue, I was able to be heard and got this particular issue changed to my satisfaction.
Well, now you've got me curious. What was the issue that they didn't want, that you just couldn't possibly give the input on, that you ended up doing? What was the issue?
You'd be surprised. Or well, at least I was. It was our school schedule. So again, I live in Talkeetna. So the school that my kids go to is called Sioux Valley, and it is a very rural school. It gets kids from Willow and Trapper Creek, and of course Talkeetna. The closest school is over 45 minutes away. And we were a pilot program for a 4-day school week. But they didn't fully do 4 days. The kids would go to school for about 2 hours on Fridays, which some of the kids in the school would ride the school bus for the same amount of time to and from school. And so it just felt like a really inconvenient schedule to go show up for just a few hours. And that's what I wanted to give feedback on is, can we make this work a little better? And was told that it was too complicated. And so I did a bunch of research, like I said, went to the school board. Turns out that by arranging our schedule that way, our kids were getting about 100 less hours of instruction a year. And Sioux Valley is a 6th through 12th grade school, and I had a 6th grader at the time. And so doing the math, 100 hours less education for 7 years is almost a full school year less of instructional hours than her co-school, her equivalent down in the Valley. And so I made the argument that it was just an inequality compared to the rest of the Valley, and that if the pilot programs should be a choice, and that a different school would be a better option to institute those pilot programs. Yeah,
a school that didn't require 2 hours of busing to get back and forth. That would probably be a good idea.
And I should back up and say, I think that there are some merits to trying a 4-day school week. I'm not opposed to a 4-day school week. There's, especially like up in the Fairbanks area or something, maybe there would be a smart thing about heating or transportation that could play into. It just didn't seem like a right fit to do a 2-hour Friday for us. Yeah.
No, 4-day school week means 4 days, not 4.2 days, right? I mean, so one of the kind of things. Interesting. All right. Interesting. All right. Well, Dena McChargue. No, I didn't. McChargue. There we go.
Yeah, don't pronounce all the letters. There you go.
Dena McChargue. Dena McChargue is our guest. She's a candidate running for the MatSu Borough School Board. We are bumping up against the break, and so this seems like a natural time to go ahead and take that. So we're going to hold off for just a second here. We're going to continue our discussion with Dena in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We'll return with just a moment and continue our discussions on MatSu schooling with Dena right after this.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Nice beard.
The Michael Duke Show.
Oh, you actually have to push the button before you start talking. That's amazing. All right, let's continue on now. We're in the commercial break, Dena. It's just you, me, and 40 of our closest friends on the internet. And so we're just going to continue on here during the commercial break. I like to change gears a little bit, but so let's go back here, and because I'm a little bit astounded. when somebody in a bureaucratic position of a duly elected, representative body where we, the people, are supposed to be the power, tells somebody that, this is very reminiscent of, I remember in Virginia when Terry McAuliffe was the head of the teachers of the school system and everything, and basically told people, your parents, shut up and sit down. You have no input on your schooling. And that, of course, caused a whole revolution in Virginia. It reminds me of that. Like, they look at you and you go, wait a second, you work for us, you're working with our kids, and now you're telling me I have no say. I'm hoping that that's kind of changed a little bit since then, 3 years ago. That must have been an astounding thing to have said to you.
Yeah, I was insulted for several weeks about the comment, and then about just soaking in the idea that parents and students aren't the focus. And I feel like administration, the upper administration, especially at the district level, still has that attitude. But I think that our actual educators at our local school is the opposite. They do a great job, and they do get a lot of feedback, and they consider that. We had a couple new policies out at our school, and they even had parent nights and took what we said and really incorporated that into their new policies. So it feels like there's two distinct different levels, from local to the upper umbrella, that there's a disconnect. But I have a question. I opened the chat, and now there's an X to get out of it, and I'm tempted to push the X, but I don't want to end the broadcast. Do you know if I hit the X in the chat?
No, go ahead and hit the X in the chat. And you can
here we go.
You can click the link again if you go away.
It worked. Okay.
Yeah. No, that's fine. So, and I've never seen it from your end. I've seen pictures of it, but you should be seeing the chat on the one side of the window there of all the folks going by. And
it's really small on my phone.
Oh, it's really small on your phone? Yeah, no, this is that's okay. I'll make sure I read if they say anything bad. I'll make sure I read it to you. It'll be fine. But the chat, but my chat is super nice, and they're always pleasant, and they're always doing good. So it's all good. No, you know what? It's nothing is more infuriating as a person who truly believes in a representational form of government, to have somebody who is an elected official, or worse yet, a bureaucrat of some kind, tell you something like that, where you just, and again, the implication, as you said, and I think many people would read that implication correctly, that you're not smart enough to understand. That was kind of the, not so subtle implication, is that, well, you're not smart enough. And that infuriates me. Because again, this is our government. And it's our children. Worse and worse. It's our children, right?
Yeah, our Fridays that we were getting up for just a couple hours of effort that could have been utilized elsewhere. But no, I agree completely. Like you said, they are unelected, the bureaucratic system, and to know that our taxpayers, that it's a government service, that should be the epitome of getting feedback and at least considering it, or to be told that it's not even listened to is so different than just even saying we weigh it, but we decided that this works better.
Right. Yeah, we heard you, but that's bad. That's bad, but no, we don't even bother to listen to you because you're not smart enough. That's even worse, for sure. Brian said, "Oh my God, she can see us." Yes, Brian, she can see you. It's all good. All right.
It's really small.
We're about to rejoin the radio, so let's get back to it. Dena McChargue is our guest.
Yeah.
I got it. Here we go. I'm just, it's always tough when it's my name's so easy. It's just hard with everybody else. All right, here we go. 3 seconds. The Michael Duke Show.
The Michael Duke Show. Not your daddy. Wait, sorry. Not your daddy? Ooh, not your daddy's talk radio. Whew. I was scared for a second. Thought we were going down. Here's Michael Dukes and the show.
That's right. And not your daddy, nor do I play him on TV. And not your daddy's talk radio. It's the Michael Duke Show, where everyone hates us. That's how it is. When you're a libertarian, everyone hates you. All right. Dena McChargue is our guest. She's a candidate for the MatSu's Borough School Board. We were just having an interesting conversation during the break, which is one of the reasons why it's always good for you to come out on Facebook or YouTube or Rumble and follow us there, because you get a chance to hear it. Dena, you had a what I would like to say is a very interesting take on this, and that is that there seems to be two different systems, two different groups of folks. Anytime that I complain about something or something in the school district, there's always somebody in the chat room or who screams, why do you hate teachers? And I'm like, I don't hate teachers at all. I want teachers to be able to be empowered to do a great job. I mean, they love the kids, they do it, everything else. But, there's this problem. When I went to Lathrop High School in Fairbanks, there was 40 teachers, 35, 40 teachers, and there was like 7 or 8 administrators, right? The nurse, the guidance counselor, the principal. There's like 8. Now it's like half and half. In some areas, it's 3 to 1, 4 to 1 sometimes in teachers in the classroom. And it seems like you mentioned that there seems to be this dichotomy, this separation between these two different areas of teaching. So expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, I'm really happy with our local school. We have great current administration. I'm friends with many of the teachers. They're our community members. You see them at the grocery store type of thing. And then especially in our area, it's governed by the school district administration, which is in far off Palmer, again, 70 miles, about an hour and a half drive for us away. And it's like you get these messages from afar about how things will be and happen in our area. And it just doesn't seem to be a lot of closeness or communication. They try, they come up and visit. They've held school board meetings up at our local elementary schools and stuff like that. But it just doesn't, it just doesn't replace being part of that community intimately. And I think that harkens back to my growing up, where I grew up on a small island, 2,000 people or so, and the school board was made up of your neighbors. The local administration was your neighbors, and they're very familiar with your local issues. And so I think it's just kind of growing pains also for moving to a bigger district. And then on top of it, what appears to be administrators who don't differentiate between large schools and small schools.
Right. Well, it would be interesting to have you on there. We had a recent situation down here in the Kenai Peninsula where we have a small school that got closed, and it was in a similar situation. It was about 60 miles away from the seat of power, so to speak. Small school, small community, and they kind of closed it. And now that community is scrambling, trying to form a charter school because the facility's there, and they still want to not have to try and transit people 50 miles to another school. And so it's kind of the same situation that you guys are in. I think it's always good to have that kind of ultra rural perspective in those school districts, because again, you guys need help too as well. And I think that's an interesting perspective. And again, I think that difference between what the administration and administrative needs are versus what's the needs in the classroom. So I want to get into that. But let's talk about the school district as a whole. As you look at it, what are the big things that you think big challenges? As I said earlier, MatSu's seems to be almost the poster child for doing most of the things right. But what do you think are the challenges for the MatSu's Borough School District, in the next 2 to 5 years? What are you seeing as you look to join and jump on the board?
Yeah, a couple issues. I think you're right that they have made great strides in like CTE. They're currently funded okay, but I think that's coming to a tipping point. Just watching the different budget conversations at the past couple of years of their budget meetings, we're above water at the moment, but the valley is growing, and yet our student count is not growing. And as you've discussed on recent conversations, that's the one way that the district gets their funding is student count. And so focusing on student count and increasing those numbers is going to be a huge issue in these next 2 to 5 years. And then I think another sleeper issue that's really going to show itself this year and the next 3 years is graduation rates. And this one would be a longer conversation. And so I don't know if you want a general overview right now or if I should just dive right into that one. But yeah.
Right
okay,
in.
so
Go ahead.
yeah, so I mentioned I have 2 high schoolers. One of them is a junior, my oldest, and something that is new this year. What's not new, but this year's graduating class is the first graduating class in the district that is required to graduate with 25.5 credits, and also, as well as those credits, they have to have one very specific course and curriculum called AP Seminar. It's an advanced placement course that can earn you college credit if you pass a test. And this is new compared to last year. Last year's graduating class, I think, had 24.5 credits. And so I'm curious if this year, if we'll see a stunt in our graduation rates because of these requirements. They've done a really good job of trying to get students to be able to pass classes, offering different elements to get those credits completed. And this college level course is taught at a 10th grade level. So most students should have had quite a bit of time to complete this class, but it will be interesting. I'm not sure how the homeschool families are getting it done because teachers have to be trained by the College Board or the AP Advanced Placement a curriculum to, or the company provider, perhaps it's a better phrase, in order to teach this class. So I don't even know exactly how the homeschool families are getting this requirement done. And then to switch back to funding, I think because of these increased requirements that a lot of families have left the district looking for a better homeschool option. Better might not be the best word. It may be a simpler homeschool option would be a better phrase. For example, IDEA, the correspondence school out of Galena's school district, they only require 21 credits to graduate, and parents have a lot of choice in how to fill those credits, parents and students.
Right. Yeah, no, it's interesting that you bring that up. Because you're right. I think that most school districts are going to be facing a problem, even with all the things that MatSu's doing right, and their graduation rate is much higher than the state average. But even with that, the fact that they have a continual decline in enrollment is going to be an issue. And I have laid that burden of the budgetary issues in my mind, back on the school boards themselves in the various districts around the state. I mean, school boards cannot continue to bet on the best case scenario. They can't continue to budget as if we're going to have all the students we want, and we're going to continue at exactly the same level no matter what. Because if your enrollment is declining, then your income is going to be declining. And on top of that, you're going to have inflation eating into it and everything else. You can't keep planning for that. You've got to start planning for the decline and start planning, for loss of funding. I mean, in Fairbanks, they've had to close 3 schools. They're probably going to have to close 2 more. They're at least acknowledging that there is an issue. You can't have, they went from 17,000 to 11,000 students in 20 years. You can't have that kind of decline and expect you're going to be able to keep everything open the way it was. And I think there needs to be a wake-up call on a school board to understand that you have to start planning for the worst case.
Not only just start planning, but I think one thing that hasn't quite sunk in is that the school is almost a competitive business now, whereas before perhaps just that was the natural inclination. Your kids went to public school, where now with technology, with the COVID experience, families are realizing that there are so many other options for education out there, and that aren't expensive. When you do homeschool, you get a small budget to work with, and now you have a competitive business where your customers are leaving to go to the best option for them. And the school board has to wake up and realize that they have to offer a competitive product. And when you think you have a great product, but it's the most rigorous product out there and that's your lowest level of rigor options, the 25.5 credits versus IDEA's 21, which is the state minimum, you're going to have people who choose that other product. And I think there needs to be some innovation on how we see ourselves. Business isn't the best word, but it's the closest analogy I can think of, where your customers now realize they have other choices, and coping with that.
It is a competitive market. I mean, you're right. I mean, you have to look at it from kind of that perspective to say we're delivering a product, it's education. And if homeschooling and charter schools and micro schools and all these alternative forms seem to be delivering a better product in the long run for less money, and it gives the parents more freedom, then of course they're going to want to choose those options. And so school districts need, if they want to be more competitive, then they're going to have to make changes to their own correspondence systems, or to their brick and mortar systems, or to specialize, as it seems like the MatSu is doing, more in offering things that maybe the homeschooling areas can't, like some of the CTE and the vocational things, that you have to be able to offer that. And I think that you have expressed better than almost any other candidate that I've talked to, that we have to acknowledge that the technology and the times are changing. The brick and mortar school experience, they've tried to keep it the same for the last 100 years, but between COVID and the tech and everything else, it's a whole new world out there, and kids now learn differently, and people are looking for different things in their jobs and careers that, I mean, we have to make changes.
Yeah, and it can be so exciting too. Like, for example, last year, my youngest and I, we took an online painting class through the University of Alaska MatSu. We were able to sit in our living room with Zoom open and be instructed how to paint by a college level teacher, and join a classroom that was an hour away. And I think there's so many exciting opportunities like that our district has the potential to offer, that maybe the homeschool kid out in Squentna can't do at home. But if they had a qualified instructor that can Zoom into their living room and give them options like that. You mentioned CTE, that provides a little bit more of a challenge, mostly because of equipment stuff. But again, Talkeetna, we're a big aviation community, small school aviation. There's no private pilot ground school here that I'm aware of, but that's another thing that could be offered via distance or in an online platform. There would be challenges for sure, but I think that there is just a new wave of opportunity that is kind of washing by. And if we had innovative ideas and teachers and administration willing to jump on that. I should say a board too, especially with my candidacy. I think that there's a way to offer an outstanding education for all the students, whether they be homeschooled and plugged right into our district, or even students in other districts, or I don't know, potentially out of state. There's things that Alaska specializes in that I think that we could offer and just increase our educational product.
You mentioned the budgets, and of course that's been the hot topic du jour for the last 18 months, of course, is student budgets. We saw the increase in the BSA came through in this last legislative cycle, although it seemed like in a lot of the conversations, the student outcomes got lost in the discussion. It was more like, give us our money and we'll teachers are paid for. And, it seemed like, I think that goes back to your 2-level thing, people in the classroom versus administration and everything. But I mean, one of the things that we're addressing here is that there is no more money. They've already said they want to come back for more this next session, but we're already facing potentially a $2 billion deficit this year at the state level. So there is no more state money. So do we do more with less? Do we change how do we address this? I mean, because there is no more money. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, that's a huge problem. And I honest, I don't know that I have the best answer. I think for our local answer, it's increasing that student number. And I think that they could easily, that's a 2-step problem. We've got to stop the bleeding of families choosing somewhere else. IDEA has a great concept idea, with pun intended, on the homeschool that they provide. They've managed to make the Galena School District a really huge school district by offering an amazing homeschool program. and capturing students from all over the state. We've got to, as a district, stop the flood of people going there because of the better choices that they offer, and then turn that around into attracting others as well. Whether it's taking a close look at what we are spending money on, like for example, our superintendent over the past 5 years, they've had a 24% salary increase. They've also had a 60% increase in their annual bonuses. I think we could be spending our money in smarter places, and not that administration doesn't deserve recognition or compensation, but when my local schools are cutting their junior class advisor or their senior class advisor and you see money being increased to someone's bonuses, it just has a really strong pull of where are we spending our money? How is it being delegated by those who have the levers? And can we be doing a more targeted job for the students that we're actually serving?
No, I think it's a valid question. I mean, again, administrative bloat, administrative overhead. How could we do it? I mean, Fairbanks just saved $3.5 million by privatizing their overnight janitorial service. I mean, Are there ways to do things like that we need to look at? And I think we have to be open to everything. Like you said, we have to be more competitive. Dena McChargue is our guest. We're going to continue with her here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show continues. Coming up in hour 2, Bret Rotermund is going to be joining us, candidate for re-election at the Fairbanks North Starborough Assembly level. We will continue with more. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Back with more right after this.
We're broadcasting live through a series of tubes.
Allowing all of these entities to provide streaming stuff going on the internet.
Well, it's kind of hard to explain. Sorry. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay, we are in the commercial break right now. Dena continues with us here. Let me get a couple questions from the chat room here. Rick says, Dena, what are your thoughts on homeschooling and smaller schools? And I think you've given us some of that, but in a sidebar here, give us your thoughts on homeschooling and smaller schools overall.
Yeah, briefly, we homeschooled for 3 years when my kids were elementary or in early middle school age, and I loved it. It was such an intimate time for our family to spend more hours together, and I can definitely see the appeal that parents and families have for that. I think it's a great option, and it was right for our family at that time, and so I encourage folks that are interested in it to take that leap. And with that said, we went back to public school for a couple of reasons. I started to feel like I wasn't competent in teaching my kids language arts when I was having to Google what prepositions and different things like that was. And so I felt like they were outgrowing me. So I was grateful for the experts to step back in. And then also the social aspect of having more peers. So I think homeschool can be definitely the right choice for a lot of people who are in a position to do that with their families. And so I think that that's going to be something that all schools are going to should hybrid for a successful future model.
Yeah, and again, being competitive in that area makes more sense. If you can invent a better mousetrap, more people will come to it. It'll be good. Let's see. Rick actually has a follow-up question here. What is the specific role? I guess this is in your mind. What is the specific role of a school board members?
To put it in a nutshell, I think it's taking state statute, state policy, and formulating goals and a vision for your district, and then shepherding the ship in that direction, using the guidelines that the state has already laid out for you. And so it's collaborating with your peers, whether they're with you on every issue or not, collaborating and putting the students first and creating the best possible public education that they could get as a really general overview.
No, I mean, I think that's good. And of course, the fiduciary responsibility of a school board as they create they're the helm, they're helming the ship. There may be oarsmen in the water, but they're the ones that are helming the ship. And I think that's been part of our problem is they continue to want to try and steer us in the direction that we've always gone, and realizing we've got to adapt. We've got to adapt to what's going on. Kim says, all three of my kids rode the bus 60 miles round trip for school from their middle and high school years. Never a problem for us. And I don't think anybody was saying it's a problem. It's just, well, in the case of driving 2 hours back and forth all day and then only spending 2 hours in school, as you were talking about, that's a little bit, I mean, that seems ridiculous, quite honestly, if you're going to do something like that. But I mean, sometimes you are farther away, for sure.
No, I think that's great that that option was there. And I, to be honest, that like looking back and reflecting, I don't know that it was necessarily the wrong option to have a 2-hour Friday. Maybe there was a great reason. But when I was told that I couldn't even have an opinion, I think I kind of put up a roadblock to even what is the great reasons. And this is my opinion, and this is what I see as far as the huge gap in our education hours. In my research, I even argued that it was an unlawful schedule because I felt like we got less than the state required hours of education.
Right.
The district stated that it was legal because they were counting lunch and breakfast, no, not lunch, passing period and breakfast as instructional hours. And the way I read the statute, that wasn't a qualified time.
You won that argument, so good for you. That's all.
Yeah, thanks. I
Yeah,
won't beat that dead horse anymore.
exactly. Ken makes a valid point. It's something we're a little uncomfortable talking about, it seems like, in this country overall, but he does make a valid point. He says birth rates are way down. And we're on a continuing decline on that as well. He said, so the future is doom and gloom if you're looking to be a teacher. Now, I don't think that part is necessarily true, but we have to acknowledge that birth rates are down. There's much more competition. So overall enrollment in standard brick and mortar is down. And that's something that we have to we can't just reverse that with a wave of a magic wand. We've got to be able to address that and acknowledge and plan accordingly.
Yeah, I agree. I think that we're going to have a flexible, not a flexible budget, but we've built all of these public structures with our schools and our buildings, and we're responsible for taking care of them and the maintenance. And if our enrollment is going to shrink, that's not the end of the world. We can always adjust staffing sizes to be appropriate. But I think the buildings are one of the bigger concerns. I'd be curious to know how Fairbanks is coping with shutting the schools and those asset investments, and how they're just coping with an empty building. But there are some curveballs ahead, and like you said, they're not easy. Whether it's turning it back to the public, yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. We have to rejoin here.
Sure.
I we'll let you finish that thought. Here we go. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio.
Public enema number one. Oh, wait, sorry. Public enemy number one, which makes more sense. On the other hand, he's a little bit of a pain in the Michael Duke Show.
I'm a perfect angel. I don't know why he says that all the time. I'm just so... All right, welcome back to the program. We are continuing now. Dena McChargue is our guest, and we are talking about schooling and school districts. And we were just talking about one of the things that nobody wants to talk about, which, of course, is that there is a declining birth rate across the country. Ergo, there are less children than there were. And that's something that, it all plays back into this. Not only are there fewer children overall, but now with more choices in schooling and options, people are opting out of brick and mortar. And as much as many people would like to shoehorn us all back into that, now that we have choices and options, we don't have to do that. So we need to, the school districts and the school boards, they need to acknowledge that they can't keep doing things the same way and expect the same results, right? There has to be an adaptation and change.
Right. Yeah, and I think if you zoom out, maybe that's a good thing in a way, maybe not good thing really, but the point of a public school is to provide a quality education to the students. And if there's less students, then we just have to scale down our model. But I think that the biggest concern that kind of gets left in the sidelines, besides a loss of jobs, is our structures, our buildings that the taxpayers have invested in, and how to appropriate those and what to do with buildings. Can they be reused in a certain way? Can parts of the buildings be used for something else? I think there needs to be some thinking sessions and some creativity on how to make the most of those assets. But as bottom line, I don't think our school boards should be focused on having the same budget or always increasing their budget. The end goal needs to be providing that quality education to students, which if you just have a smaller number, hopefully is an easier target to hit.
No, I mean, I agree. I think that they shouldn't be always focusing on maintaining the status quo. And that's been part of the problem, I think, is that most school districts have been doing that. They want to maintain this. They want to have the same number of buildings with the same number of teachers and the same number of janitors and the same number of, yeah. But because you've built your whole business model on a per student funding model, the fewer you have to be able to pull in your horns. And you're right. There should be contingencies for, we have to close the school. So what do we do with the school now? How do we save the money? Does it go back to the borough and the borough then sells it or leases it or does whatever? Because, who knows, maybe in 20 years, the population, it'll reverse and we'll have more students, but we just don't know. We can't plan on that maybe one day and keep paying for this building all the time. We've got to have those contingencies built in. We've got to face the reality, right? That there's fewer students. That's the biggest thing. All right. Well, we're down to the last 6-7 minutes here. So I want to go, what are you going to focus on, Dena? If you get elected to the school board, what's going to be your big push and focus from the jump? What are you getting into?
Well, three things: student voice and parent voice. A couple of years ago, our school board removed our student representative position, a honorary position for the student government body to have a voice, a non-voting member on the school board. That had some turmoil, and that position was stripped and removed. And while I don't know that there's the votes to reinstate it, if I'm elected, then I would like to be able to be a channel for that voice and parent voices like my own, who were told that their opinions weren't smart enough to be part of the conversation. So focusing on those voices, and also the rural representation, having that unique perspective of what the small schools and rural French schools needs are. And we've already hit all of these. And last would be fiscal stability, not just bringing in money, but creating a stable path forward where we can hopefully roll with whatever storms are coming our way. And so to put that into specifics, advocating for the school representative position to be back. I don't know how achievable that would be. And then graduation requirements. Like I said, we have one of the highest graduation maybe the highest graduation credit requirement in the state, with a very curriculum specific requirement in the AP seminar, which is a brand. It's a very specific curriculum. I would like to see that change so that students and parents have more options to fill that credit instead of one specific curriculum.
Right.
It'd be like telling someone that your kid has to take Saxon Math Algebra 1 and pass it in order to graduate. It's too narrow for my liking. So seeing graduation requirements change to hopefully bring back more students and more options.
It's interesting and I'm glad you brought up the student representative thing, because I know that you were, back in the day, you were actually, before you ever attempted or did this, you were quoted in the paper as talking about this. You came down and testified in front of the school board. Now, I think that that's an interesting position, because what we saw a lot of advocacy for students to have not just a voice, but a vote on the board. And that was, I think, what really triggered the whole thing, is that people are like, this is a school board. It's not, and I agree that I think students should be able to have input, but my feeling is they can't have no vote, but you can have input all you want. Yeah.
And
So
yeah, and there
I wanna
wasn't a. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to get clarification on that point, that you're not asking for the student body or the student representative to have a vote, but to have a voice.
Yeah, and they didn't have a vote position before. They could log a vote in the minutes, but it had no effect on the voting outcome. We were a 7-member board, and that was the vote that got counted. And I don't ever think I ever saw a meeting where the student did cast an honorary vote, but they were more of a voice. And honestly, in years prior to the student that got removed, when he held that position, it was a really quiet voice. And so it was from a spectator position, it felt like once the students had an eloquent advocate for their voice, that's when it got shut down. Because before that, it was a really quiet honorary position. And once they became a active member of the conversation, it felt like people didn't like that.
Well, and I guess my commentary on that was that it wasn't just eloquence, it was combativeness. There was a lot of, and not that I'm saying we should teach the children to shut up and sit down, but I'm just saying at some point it got a little out of hand. I mean, I'll just say that from
Fair.
my perspective.
Sure. And I don't, looking at our national politics, I don't think that's a unique occurrence in a decision-making body. But could it have been handled better? Yeah, probably. But that doesn't, there's other tools. There's censorship, the actual process of censoring a member. There's other tools besides stripping the position completely. And with a young person first being involved in a public setting like that, I think there could have been a better way to handle it while still honoring the student voices. And so I hear your point. I think it's an excellent one. If I may keep one other point, I was at a community council meeting, and we acknowledged that everyone around the table is of an older generation, and how do we get young people involved in government? And I would point exactly to what we just removed, is having spaces for young people to role model and practice in government. Where else is a better position to start training up young people on the decorum of a deliberative body and how to work through the process of policymaking and collaborating with people of opposing views than in the schools and student government. And so I think it's a real shame that we decided that they were too immature, or whatever the final pull of the plug was. I think we're shooting ourselves in the foot in that.
Dena McChargue, how do folks find out more about you? Where do they go? What do we do quickly here?
Yeah, so I'm not accepting any funds, but I do have a Facebook and an Instagram page. If you look up Dena McChargue for school board, that's where I've got some information about me posted, along with my phone number and email. I am running a contested seat, although just not against an incumbent. So please vote. Our voting is November 4th. That's election day. October 20th is when early voting starts.
All right, Dena McChargue, thank you so much, folks. We're out of time. Hour 2 dead ahead. The Michael Duke Show. All right, we were right up against the break. And so
sorry.
it's good. I posted the link to Dena's Facebook page in the chat room if you want to do it. You were asking about buildings and what they're planning on doing with it, and I was going to say you should get a hold of Melissa Burnett. Melissa actually just showed up late in the chat room here, and so I'm going to give you this question as the final question here. Why do you want to change your graduation requirements? Are you trying to water them down instead of holding our students to a higher standard? I think she came in late and didn't know about this new credit, or anyway, so I'll let you respond to that.
Yeah, Melissa, that's a great perspective that I think needs to be balanced. Our graduation requirements is 25.5 credits, with the added that one of those credits is a very specific curriculum called AP Seminar, an advanced placement course that's college level. And it's my opinion that I don't think that all high school students should be able to perform at a college level in order to get a high school diploma. I think it's a great option to have in the curriculum for students who want to take it to take. And then the other component of changing graduation requirements, removing that particular curriculum requirement and potentially lowering the number of credits. It's a long answer, but the brief one is that families seem to be leaving to go to places like IDEA or other correspondence schools that have a lower credit requirement. And so I think from a business perspective, to retain more students, that we need to address that.
And this is a brand new requirement, right? This AP course is a brand new, essentially just this last year kind of thing,
This is the first graduating class. This year's graduating class is the first one that will have to, actually, I think this or last year's was the first ones that will have to have it to graduate. It's been imposed for a couple of years, but this is going to be the proof in the pudding year.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. I don't think that every student should have to compete or to be able to operate at a college level, especially if they're more on a CTE type track or something else. I think that's a, again, problematic, especially when there's only one provider kind of thing, and one deal. So interesting stuff. Dena, is there anything I didn't ask you or anything we didn't cover that you want to cover or anything else?
Looking over my notes, the only other thing that I want to mention is that I am married to a mechanic. He's in the local 302 union. The arts between me and being a culinary arts instructor and my husband being a mechanic by trade, I would say that the arts and the trades are our way of life and are super important to me. And I would like to see those be more options to our students in their education. Okay, good. And 30 seconds here, elevator pitch to anybody who's listening to you in case you want to do it one more time, just an elevator pitch on why they should vote for Dena. Yeah, we covered a lot of my talking points: student representation, parent voice, fiscal stability, and defining what that means. I think most importantly, this is a off-year election, so my elevator pitch, not only to vote for me, is to please get out and get your voices heard, whether it's voting day, November 4th, or early voting starting October 20th.
Some of the most articulate answers I've received from any school board member. So good job. You give yourself
potential member, but thank you.
Well, candidates is what I should have said. Candidates, not member. But anyway, give yourself a gold star. So
thank you.
Dena McChargue, thank you so much. We appreciate you coming on board. We look forward to talking to you again in the future, and good luck out there.
Thank you. You guys have a good one.
All right. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Dena McChargue, our guest here. We'll drop her back into the green room. Meanwhile, Bret Rotermund is here. Let's get Bret on board and check his audio, make sure he's all good. Hello, Bret. How are you, my friend?
I'm good. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you fine.
Hey, it works. Works this time. Technology didn't fail us.
Well, it's because I think I sent you a bum link last time. That's my fault, not your fault. So, okay. You all ready to go and ready to do this thing? Okay. All right. Good. Well, we're just going to riff since you're all unopposed and everything. We're just going to riff and have a good time today. It'll be fun. You can let your hair down. What's left of your hair?
Yeah. Well, that's good. Good luck with that.
You and me. What's left of our hair? We're going to let it down. So, all right, Bret, I'm going to put you back in the green room for just a minute here. Let me get caught up in the chat room to see what else is we've got going on here. Melissa said, by the way, to Dena, that makes sense. Yes, I came in late. Thank you for the explanation. And I think that's why I wanted Melissa to hear that, because I think that was the knee-jerk reaction of, oh, you want to make the kids dumber. No, it was just, this didn't seem to make a lot of sense. Yeah, Brian made a comment, customer feedback. That's what he wants. He wants customer feedback. That's the thing. Nobody wants to treat these governmental services or policies like they're business, but they kind of are, right? You're delivering a product. That product is an educated child. If you see that your customers, quote unquote, the parents, are leaving in droves and starting their own things and going out and finding other things that are more attractive, you might want to start asking your question, what are we doing wrong? I mean, if nobody wanted to advertise on my radio stations, I'd have to ask myself the question, is it me? Is it me? I got BO? Or is it my stations are bad? Or the music's horrible? Or, I'd have to start asking questions. I wouldn't just be, do it or else, and that's the problem, is that nobody is really, talking about it and asking those questions as well. So I think we need to continue to drive into those things. All right. Let's see. We are about to jump back into it. Kendall Cruz is actually in the chat room as well. Melissa Burnett, 63% of school board MatSu's graduates qualified for the performance scholarship because of the alignments of graduation requirements with the APS requirements. That means these students get between $14,000 and $28,000 in scholarships for trade school or college. Changing those requirements mean those kids lose that scholarship. Only 18% of the graduates qualified in 2024 before the final grad requirement aligned. I mean, I guess I would still say, but should it be mandatory for absolutely every student, or should it be, should the parents have a say in that? I mean, it's an interesting conversation, and it's an interesting topic. We should continue that sometime here in the future. All right, we're up against it. We got to go. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Continuing with Bret here in just a moment.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Oh, yeah, live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com and across the state of Alaska on this your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Welcome, my friends, to hour 2 of the Monday edition of the Big Radio Show, kicking off a fresh week. I mean, we're almost, this is like the last 10 days of September. How did we get through September? I mean, man, time flies when you're having fun, right? That's what it's all about. Hope you had a good weekend and hope you are ready for it. We're continuing our discussions now with local candidates. We are jumping into it. We just finished up with Dena McChargue, who is running for the MatSu's school board in hour 1. And now in hour 2, we're going to transit up to Fairbanks. And we're going to meet with Bret Rotermund, who is a candidate for re-election on the Fairbanks North Star Borough Assembly. Coming up later this week, of course, tomorrow's Brad Keithley and Chris Story. Then on Wednesday, it looks like we'll have Maxwell Sumner from the MatSu, and then Laura Reinbold and Dr. Ryan Cole and Michael Ashley will all be joining us in the second hour of Wednesday to talk about a big event that they've got coming up in the state. Been a while. Laura Reinbold hasn't been on the radio for quite a while, so we'll get that. And then on Thursday, Gail Klaus and John Mink will be back down here on the peninsula talking about their candidacies, and we will continue on here with that as well. Always good to kind of get a different perspective from what people are seeing in the various communities. I know somebody said the other day, they said, I wasn't really that interested in, we were interviewing 2 Homer City Council members, and they were like, I wasn't really that interested, but it turned out to be a very interesting conversation. He said, I wasn't excited, and then I learned a lot, so thank you. Early voting is now on in both the Fairbanks North Star Borough and the Kenai Peninsula today. Early voting starts today. And that's because the MatSu realigned their elections, their municipal elections, with the general election. So their voting won't start for another month. Their early voting won't start till October the 20th. So, but your early voting for the other areas start today. So here we go. All right, well, let's dive into this here. Bret Rotermund, our guest, candidate for re-election in the Fairbanks North Star Borough. Let's bring him onto the program, and we'll get started with him. Good morning, Bret. How are you, my friend?
Good morning, Michael. I am doing well. I was just outside. It is drizzling rain, and I had my flashlight on, and the raindrops looked somewhat suspicious, if you know what I mean.
They look somewhat suspicious. You guys look like you're a little harder than you should be. Yeah, no, I got that.
Yeah, no, it's not too bad. I mean, it was weird. When I rolled in here, it was 45 degrees on the truck thermometer, but I think the clouds just above us might be a little bit on the chilly side, if you know what I mean.
No, that's too bad. I feel bad. I feel bad for you. Can you hear the sadness in my voice?
Yes, yeah. I know you feel my pain. So
I feel so bad for you. No, that's there's many reasons, Brett, why I moved south, and that's just one of them. I'd just
one
tell
of
you right
them,
there, that's just
the
one.
early snows, and it's
Oh,
to me it's not even early. I mean, gosh, anymore. We don't. We oftentimes don't even see permanent snow up here until way into October. We still haven't made it to Halloween. We came
right.
close a couple of years ago. I think it was the night before Halloween we finally got permanent snow. But so I'm still not complaining. It's actually pretty nice. 45 is I can
Yeah.
live with
No, I
that.
mean you can thank me for that too, because apparently after I left, there wasn't a cold winter for like 8 years after I left.
Right.
And
Yeah.
the winter before I left, that last winter we were there, it was 57 below or colder at my house for more than 3 weeks solid. So I just took all that with me apparently. So it was all
Yeah, I've been here since '91, so that's what 34 years now, and
yeah.
I don't even remember the last time we officially saw 50 below zero.
Yeah. Well,
It's been a while.
it was 2013. I can tell you it was
Okay.
2013 because I
Okay.
left in 2014. So that was the
Right.
thing. But yeah, no, it's it's just one of those things where things change, and it's good to know, and I probably won't see permanent snow down here till November, and I'm okay with that. That's what I'm all about right now. I'm all okay with that. Don't get it twisted.
Yeah.
All right. All right, Bret Rotermund, a guest today, again, candidate for re-election. Now, Bret, he's running unopposed. You had a candidate at one point, right? There was an opponent, and he dropped out, or what happened there, Bret?
Yeah. So we had he kind of entered almost at the last minute. I think Tuesday was the deadline, and he jumped in on a Friday or something like that. But then the following week, was the deadline to drop out, and that I believe it was the following Friday. He dropped out, so never got a chance to meet him. Don't know who he was. Apparently, he had some commitments at work that he thought he wasn't going to have time to run, so he ended up dropping out, and so here we go.
Yeah,
I'm unopposed. I'm
yeah,
not necessarily complaining. In a way though, I do wish somebody would have stepped up. I think it would have been better for messaging. Um,
right. Well,
but
I think
I'm still out there. I'm trying to help our other conservative candidates get across the finish line. So I'm still, I'm showing up at the forums that have invited me to,
right.
and I'm still
Well,
out there. So
I think it's always, I would never, as a candidate like you, I would have been unsatisfied with not having an opponent, because I think it's always good. Iron sharpens iron. You always have to have somebody out there to keep you, to keep your argument sharp and fresh, and to be able to, to work against. I think there should never be an unopposed candidate. I think that, and I think I think it's a good thing. So Bret, let's get started. For folks who don't know you, can you give us a little bit of your background, who you are, where you came from? You just said you came up to Fairbanks in the early 90s or what, but give us a full backstory here. Download me your hero origin story here.
okay. Well, We'll start. 'Cause I love Michael to death, and one of the things Michael is really good at is he falls into the trap where he mispronounces my last name. So I have to. I'll straighten that one out. My name is Bret Rotermund. Everybody likes to turn it into Rotermund, but that
Yeah,
technically that would be two T's. So,
I see.
and
I see.
the way a friend of mine remembers that up here is she says row 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 your boat. That's how she remembers it. But
I'll never forget
anyway,
it now.
you'll never forget it now.
I'll never
So
forget it
anyway,
now.
yeah, but I moved here in '91, so I'm a 34-year Alaskan, and all of that in Fairbanks. I came to Fairbanks, years ago, thinking, well, it's right in the middle of the state. If I can't find work, I'm on the road system. I can go somewhere else, and find work. So I used to work. Started off at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. I worked in their power plant. Basically, started off as a janitor. Worked my way up through operations, and then switched over to maintenance, became a mechanic and a certified welder, And then I went out, worked at the Army base for a while at their power plant. Same thing, mechanic and welder. And in the interim, I had started a sideline business where I sprayed urethane foam, insulation, and coatings. And I did that on the side after work during the summertime, and pretty quickly realized I was making more money doing that than I was crawling through boilers. So I I left there and went out into business on my own. Sold that business back around 2000, I believe, and I bought bulletproof trailers from a local here named Clay Campbell, who was quite a character here in Fairbanks, and he basically was building custom trailers out of his backyard, so to speak. And I decided to turn it into a real business. So and we started off doing that, building custom trailers. I can tell you, it's a fantastic way to go bankrupt. I mean, in about a year and a half, you will be bankrupt if you try to build high quality trailers in Fairbanks, Alaska. You will have about $73.62 to your name in about a year and a half. Ask me how I
Nice.
know that.
Nice.
And so, crying in my beer one night, trying to figure out how to make money, and I realized why are you building high quality stuff? Why don't you just fix all the other stuff that's out there? Fix everybody else's mistakes. So that's kind of how things kind of started to roll here at the business. And then I'd always thought about running for office. It was in the back of my mind. Bart LeBon and Gary Wilkin, every time they came in the shop, they would kind of, plug me a little bit, say, you should really think about running for office. I think you'd do a good job. And 3 years ago, I picked up the newspaper, and it was the classic news miner headline, be a civic leader, run for office, and it listed all the offices that were available. And the next thing I know, I was on the borough clerk's website, and there you go. So entered that race and won. And 3 years later, here I am for reelection. So
I'm glad you didn't blame me for that, because I mean everybody's blame.
no,
Everybody,
you never encouraged me to run.
no, it's one of those things where people like, well, I heard you talking about it on the radio, so I had to jump in. Oh my God, don't blame me when it's all said and done. No, I mean, again, a lot of interesting background there. And so I got to ask the question, was it just that little poke by the news miner or the people around you? Was there a specific issue, or were you just like, I got to give back? What was the catalyst? What was that? Like I said, when did you lose your mind? What was it exactly?
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, I know that's your favorite question. When did you lose your mind? And I think the news miner article pushed me over the edge, but for me, it was more giving back. Fairbanks has been a great place to live. It's a great town. There's great people here, and I've done pretty well here. And it was just my way of giving back. I'm not one of those guys to go down and volunteer at the food bank. I'm just not that kind of guy. But I thought, well, maybe this is a way I can give back. And do my civic duty, if you will.
Let's talk a little bit about here. I've only got 3 minutes here before we hit the break, but as you look back over your last 3 years of being on the assembly, what's your proudest accomplishment? What do you look back at and go, if I wasn't running for re-election, what would you be most proud of going back over the last 3 years as you look back at it, and what could you hold your head high up about?
So, I tell people, and I told people when I ran early on, people say, well, what do you want to do? What sort of legislation do you want to bring forth? And my answer to that, and it's a little bit of comedy in here, but with comedy, there's always some truth. And I say, well, look, we've got this code book, this giant code book full of codes that we don't enforce. Why would you want me to add more code to that we don't or can't enforce? We only have a couple of code enforcement officers. So I am not a huge bringer of legislation. Certainly, I did manage to get one through here where we modified our capital improvement process to help outside players, primarily the school board, get a better voice at the table, if you will, for some of the money to deal with some of their issues at the school district. So we modified, that process a little bit. That was a good one. Honestly, I think my proudest accomplishment is, because I hear it a lot from people, is being the voice of reason, trying to take the craziness and the emotion and some of the politics out of an issue and just say, look, folks, here's the facts. Most of the stuff that we decide on the assembly is pretty simple. It's a little bit of code stuff. A lot of times, most of it's money stuff. You remember that. It's money stuff, allocating money, reallocating money, shifting here or there. So I honestly, for me, it's just trying to be a voice of common sense and reason. That's my proudest accomplishment.
Bret Rotermund is our guest right here. He's going to continue with us here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show continues. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We're going to continue with Bret here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back right after this.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay, we are in the break. And we are talking with Bret Rotermund here on the program about things. Let me see if there's been anything, questions in the chat room. Melissa says, Bret has been essential in trying to tackle the CIP and get things on a list that actually need fixed and not just ribbon cuttings. Wait till we get to my favorite topic here in a minute, folks. Just wait. We can talk about that. Layla was talking about she was talking about Halloweens, and she said there's been 3 Halloweens since 1960 that have not had snow, which is good. I don't remember. I mean,
I don't remember any of those.
I don't remember it. Well, I mean, a couple of those, I was not in the state in the 90s for a year and a half, so maybe that was one of those. But anyway, yeah, my kids had never. You got to tell you, we moved to Wasilla, and it was that first year in 2014 that we were there, and my kids were still young enough to do trick-or-treating, and they were freaked out, man, because there was no snow in MatSu's for trick-or-treating. They were free. They were like, this is so weird. Anyway, let's see here. Okay. All right. I think that was it. All the questions. Frank said something about do you support the state, which is broke, stockpiling residential sprinklers for fire protection to let the public buy them at cost? And this had to do with those fire prevention kits, right? That the state had got in bulk, and that the thing. And so, I mean, feel free to answer that. Barbara clarifies it down the way already to say the state's already stockpiling them, and it would just give them an opportunity. But give me your thoughts on that there, Bret.
Yeah, we did just pass that resolution that Barbara Haney brought forward, and I think it was a good idea. I co-chair RESAC with Barbara, and that's where we kind of got an update on those kits. The folks that had those kits or had access to them during some really horrific fires we had up here this year, once again through the Haystack region, which just gets devastated every year with fire. But they proved to they made a difference. They absolutely make a difference. It's a very cool kit. How the state is going to afford something like that, I don't know. But it never hurts to ask.
Right.
What are they going to tell you? No. I mean, they can tell us no, or they can say, yeah, that's a great idea.
Well, and again, it's not the government just buying them to have the government buy them. The citizens would then be buying them, right? I mean, you're just basically giving them the bulk discount.
Correct.
The residents still have to pay for them. I mean, I would have paid for one for my house. If I was still living in Fairbanks, I would have bought one just to be safe, because I had trees that were brushing up against my house. It would have been a good idea. But anyway, yeah, that's a good choice there. Have you been walking the streets at all, Bret, or you kind of been taking it easy? Have you been?
No, I've been taking it easy. I'm working I'm working kind of in the background for some of our other candidates. Calling people, begging for money. I've gotten pretty good. My first campaign, I didn't want to ask for money for anything. I self-funded that first campaign. I only raised about $5,000, I think, in that first campaign. And spent a bunch of my own. But no, I've been working the scenes in the background. Uh, and I've been tied up with so many other things between the business, and now we're trying to get our cabin wrapped up for the winter. And of course, hunting season works in there that I really didn't want to miss out on. So I tried to get a little bit of hunting in there. So nope. And I will admit, I'm not much of a door knocker. I do respect people's privacy. It's a little bit hard for me to go out and door knock. I told Tammy Wilson I'll do it this year. Maybe I will do some last minute stuff here, just to maybe be good for my pride a little bit, to go knock on doors.
I always found that to be the most fun thing. I know it's inconvenient at sometimes, but I always found that to be the most interesting thing, because you learned a lot from people when you went door to door, and things perspectives you may not have ever seen before. So I always found that to be the most interesting. But all right, well, we're 10 seconds out here, and we're about to rejoin. Like, share, subscribe, ring the bell. Let's do it. Here we go.
The Michael Duke Show. Seriously humorous with a pinch of intellect. Sorry. That is humorous. Here's Michael Dukes.
Okay. Bret Rotermund is our guest. We're continuing here talking about his candidacy for the Fairbanks North Star Borough. Bret. There's a lot of things that we could talk about here. Most importantly, though, I think the big elephant in the room is the size and scope of borough government. We have got, I remember when I left the borough back in 2014, the borough budget was at about $140 million. And I know that today it's much larger than that. We've seen an increase in the number of personnel. It's increased by, I think, about 20% since I left 10 years ago. We've seen kind of this out of control spending, and we see that they tried to bust the tax cap last year. On top of that, again, trying to spend more and more than what they have access to. And this year, Mayor Hopkins decided that the best course of action was to overspend and then draw $8 million or so out of savings. So kind of an unsustainable thing. Talk to me about the size and scope of government and your philosophy and how you see it.
So first off, I totally agree with you. Fairbanks North Star Borough it's just gotten too large over time. And I don't even know if it was anything really intentional. I think it just happened over time. Way back, if you look at our infrastructure here, if you take away our new borough bus building, our transportation building, which was built mostly with federal dollars, and that program is run mostly with federal dollars, as you know. But if you take that building out of the equation, you look at all of our other buildings, we have a lot of aging infrastructure here. And in my opinion, the reason for that is back in the day, it was build, because money was more available. Certainly more available from the state, and probably from the feds. You'd have to go back and look at all of that. So we have a ton of infrastructure here that we've not done a very good job maintaining. And then add to that, when I got on the assembly 3 years ago, inflation was running rampant, and our bids that were coming in for our projects, our folks are pretty good at estimating, where these bids are going to come in at. They weren't even close. I mean, they were off. Oftentimes they projected $500,000, and we were getting, our lowest bid was 1.1 million. So you add all that together, and all of a sudden it starts costing you serious money to keep all this aging infrastructure rolling. And of course, you got your negotiated, all of our employees are unions. You've got to deal with the negotiated contracts, the pay increases. So yeah, that led to, this year, Mayor Hopkins sent us a budget to the Finance Committee that was $10.2 million over. In the end, we trimmed that back and we got it down to about 8.3 million, which we had to draw out of fund balance. That's government speak for a savings account. And if that trend continues, which is logical to assume that next year the budget will be probably presented budget will be $10 million over. If we continue to do this, the following year we will not be able to dip very far into our savings. We have a mandated reserve, and if we continue to draw like this after next year, we will pretty much be at that target reserve, and we will not have anything left in our savings account.
And so I guess my question is, one, how did we get here to where they're creating budgets that are over what we have available? And two, when that does happen, let's just play the what if game, right? Okay, he produces another budget that's over, you trim it back, but still you have to draw. But again, that this next year will be the last year you can do it. There is no more money left in the fund balance after that. So what is the option on year 3 when he comes back with another budget that's $8 to $10 million over? What happens then? I mean, you can't, right? You've got a tax cap, you've got all. What happens then?
Well, we'll see if my prediction comes true. I believe that the argument will start to circulate that, and I've heard these words before. This is almost a direct quote. We've just got to get rid of this antiquated tax cap. It's holding us back. It's holding us back. So we're going to see if that prediction comes true. If not, the people of this borough are going to have to make some tough decisions. They're going to have to tell us what they want. Do you want us to cut back? We try. We've tried to cut some of these products and services, buildings. It never seems to get anywhere because, as you know, the user groups come out. They come out in force, and they back the assembly, the body, into a corner, and ultimately there aren't enough votes to hold the line. Well, if you don't want to cut, then you have to look for other sources of revenue, and that's government speak for more taxes. And anytime you start talking about, you lived here for a long time, Michael. You know the two dreaded words in Fairbanks politics are sales tax. Mention those two words. It's a great way to find yourself out on the streets and no longer in politics. So again, to me, this is simple math. This equation will solve itself. Somehow or another, it's going to solve itself. But so far, the people have not risen up en masse and told us to cut. We can't get it through. If they did, they would vote more people on this body that agree that we need to trim this thing somehow or another.
Well, I think it's a little bit of dichotomous thinking here, because on the one hand, you had this vote back last a year ago, May, that was, I think it was 70%, because they attempted to bust the tax cap. 70% said not only no, but hell no. And yet at the same time, we're not electing people to the assembly who are willing to, grab the tiller and yank us in the direction of more, of fiduciary responsibility, or yank us a little bit more towards austerity to say we've got to cut things back. So you've got these two, these two opposing thoughts. But eventually and especially if you run down the fund balance, you won't have any savings for any kind of, emergencies or contingencies or anything else. I mean, this is a real problem, and people just don't seem to be paying attention to it.
Right. Yeah. So the target minimum as it stands right now for our fund balance, if I remember it right, it's right around $27 million. After the last draw, we drew it down to 30, 38, 39 million, something like that. Again, if we draw down another 10 this next year, I mean, there you are. You're at your reserve, or you're pretty darn close. And you're right. If we have a major emergency, what was the big fire year where the fires, we were worried about the fires jumping the hill and rushing down into Fairbanks and wiping out, Eielson. Yeah. Remember? And I mean, it was a federal emergency. I mean, we had people from the Pentagon here. We had all the congressional delegation from DC was here. It was a big deal. It was a major emergency. $27 million does not go very far. in this day and age. So I didn't like drawing that thing down. At the same time, the argument was made to me, well, wait a minute, why do we have $47 million? That's my money. Why are you keeping it
True.
in savings account? So the argument was made, you shouldn't keep that much because you took that money from me. But I also understand how fast things move and what things cost nowadays, which is pretty scary.
Well, but I have an answer to that. I mean, because they are right in that regard. Why does the government? So we don't look at more spend. We look at tax relief. That would have been the answer. The answer was to offer some tax relief to the citizens, bring it back down to that fund balance minimum, and then say, okay, we've got a little bit of a float, but that's it. And then we've got the minimum and we've got the tax relief, and there we go. That would have been the answer. But instead, what we've done is grow government to absorb that. And in growing it, we've now created a new artificial crisis, which is exactly what's happened at the state level. Same kind of thing. We've now created an artificial crisis where we've created government that we must support, which is going to demand new revenues.
Yeah, and pretty much every year when a mayor is presenting his budget to the assembly, he starts off way in the hole. It's millions of dollars in the hole, and that's from our obligation to our employees through their collective bargaining agreements to fulfill their contracts. And we have employees now that have stayed with us for so long, which is great, to have that kind of institutional knowledge. That's when you go to work and you find a good job and you want to stay there, you want to stay for 20 or 30 years. Well, guess what? They ran out of pay increases. We ran out of steps for them. So in some of these contracts this last year, they negotiated more step increases. So now you're having to pay these long-term employees more and more money in order to stay on. And again, like I said, pretty much everything that we do at the government level now, it's all doubled in price. If not, some of it is threefold the cost. Energy is a huge one here in the interior. So just to heat and light our buildings, it's a staggering amount of money.
You mentioned the construction. I'm going to do this. I'm going to get into it. I'm going to be in so much trouble. But you mentioned our buildings, and we were in a big build phase early in the 90s. We had so much money in the mid to late 90s and early 2000s. We were building everything. I mean, right? It was all that kind of stuff. But one of the things that I was harping about when I was on the assembly, and I was vindicated later on after I left by Mayor Carl Castle later on, is that we have so much deferred maintenance in the Fairbanks North Star borough. It's a borough of less than 100,000 people, right? 89, 90,000 people. We have got $250 million in deferred maintenance on facilities that we've already paid for, and we're just not upkeeping. Is there anything being done to address that? $250 million, 270 something billion dollars, or $1 million. Is there something being done to do that?
Well, that was kind of the point of, in my opinion, of our capital improvement program. When it first started, I think that was the spirit of that legislation and that program was to start to create a pot of money that could be used to help, with some of these issues. The problem is it became a pot of money to build, baby, build. And now everybody they want to use it for all this new stuff. We want new parks. We want a new animal shelter. We want this, we want that. But it's like, wait a minute, we're not taking, we have a proven track record, a very proven track record of not taking care of our own facilities. And these facilities are beginning to basically fall apart. And then what you find out when you talk to these folks is that when we build these buildings, they're only looking at a 50-year lifespan. And it's like, 50 years, that seems kind of silly. I mean, we've got houses in downtown Fairbanks that are in perfect condition, better condition than when they were built way more than 50 years ago. And that most of those were underwater during the flood, for crying out loud. You've got buildings on the East Coast that go all the way back to the founding of this nation that are every bit as good, if not better, than the day they were built. So I don't understand government. likes to build new, but they never think of the long-term costs. What happens when the roof fails? Geez, a roof now for some of these buildings up here, that one project alone can cost you $3 or $4 million just for
Right.
one roof.
Right. Well, I mean, how do we reverse that? I mean, how do we get them to start paying attention to that? Because again, what always ends up happening is, oh, I know we had this money set aside to fix X, Y, or Z or to maintain X, Y, or Z, but I've got this really great program over here that we need to do. Or I have this new building that I'd like to build rather than maintain. How do we shift the mindset on that?
Well, to me, it starts with electing the right people to the body, and not just the body. You got to start all the way at the top. You got to start at the mayor's office. That's the only way it's going to change, is to get people to wake up and rise up and say, quit building new until we start fixing these old buildings. I mean, we just went through this with the North Pole High School. The assembly had no clue what was going on with the boilers at the North Pole High School. We can't keep up on every single pump and boiler and in every building. And all of a sudden we've got this crisis where these boilers, we find out that there's 3 or 4 of them, and they've been robbing Peter to pay Paul, stealing parts from one machine, moving it to another machine. The life expectancy of those boilers was 30 years. They're already at 40 years old. No parts are available, and now we've got to make an emergency appropriation to go in and do this. And I was just stunned by that, thinking, my God, if those units would have failed at 30, 40 below zero, we would have lost the entire building. So, if I remember right, we had to appropriate a couple $1 million to go in there and do that. And thank God we did, because if not, you'd have lost who knows what that building is worth.
Yeah. No, it's astonishing, to say the least, that this is the mindset. And like you said, it has to start at the top. And obviously we're going in the wrong direction when we have a mayor that is proposing budgets that are $10 million over what we have available as income, not as, so yeah, we've got some issues here, folks, some serious issues. People in Fairbanks need to start paying a lot closer attention to what's going on here. All right, we're going to continue. Bret Rotermund is our guest. We're going to continue. One final segment dead ahead, the Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. We're back with more right after this.
We're broadcasting live through a series of tubes.
Allowing all of these entities to provide streaming stuff going on the internet.
Well, it's kind of hard to explain. Sorry. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
You make a valid point, Brett, especially on this North Pole High School thing. I mean, like, how did nobody know? Obviously, somebody knew, but nobody was prioritizing the fact that you had boilers that were about to fail in a $30 or $40 million school, right?
Yeah, and that was kind of the point of what I tried to do when we changed some of the process for the KIP, was to allow, because these projects keep coming in. Everybody wants, the pie in the sky. So they want to do, we'll use that. The North Pole High School is a classic example. So that project was in the KIP. It was in our KIP. And I understand we only put in $11 million into our KIP every year. That's not a lot of money. $11 million doesn't go very far. And so that project was in there. But the problem is, the project as presented was, let's redo the whole mechanical room. So let's get rid of the boilers. Let's get rid of the air handling system. Let's just buy all new. That's great. It all needs to be done. It's all aging. It's failing. But somebody somewhere, and now there's a process for this in the KIP, can say, wait a minute, what in this project can we pick out? What can we accomplish here? What's the important part of this? Will the air handlers continue to work? Answer, yes. Are you going to have to jury rig them to make them work? Yes. Well, if the boilers fail and you have no hot air to push through the building, what good is new air handlers going to do to you? You need hot air to push through the building. So what should have happened and now can happen is you can pick those projects apart, find something that makes sense in these big projects. Because that project, when it came in, was around $10 million. Well, that would have hogged up an entire uh, year's worth of KIP allocation. You see what I'm saying? So we've got to look at things different. We've got to start picking these projects apart. You can't tackle it all at once. We don't have enough money. Clearly, we don't have enough money.
And again, this is part of my problem. I mean, when I was on the assembly, I was railing about this. Like, I mean, and we weren't even talking about North Pole School, but those boilers had a 30-year life, and you're at 40 years. I mean, somebody should have said something at 28 years and said, by the way, we're reaching the end of our boiler life, and it needs to be, and not something that's put on the KIP. It's something that we should be budgeting for. I mean, we should be taking a portion of every building that we build. There should be an apportionment that goes into a fund that says this is the maintenance fund for that building. Why aren't we doing that?
We don't? Because we're spending it on other things in the budget process. You know how that works. Everybody's got their little pet project that they want to work on, and then somehow or another that money gets allocated over there. We still can't nail anybody down on whether we have some sort of a database or a spreadsheet or something on all of these pieces of equipment. Tammy Wilson and I have asked this question. Don't you guys have some sort of computer program that manages all this equipment so that it can start pinging you at year 28 when your 30-year boiler is going to run out? So you can come to the assembly in year 28 and say, hey, during the budget process, we'd really appreciate an extra maybe $2.5 million to redo this before we lose an entire building at 40 below zero. Can you imagine what we would have had to do to get emergency heat if those boilers had failed at North Pole High School? Oh my God, the amount of money we would have had to shell out to get some sort of heat. We'd have had every Herman Nelson heater in Fairbanks trying to pump heat into that building to save it,
Right.
So it's maddening sometimes.
It's not just maddening, it's madness. I mean, it really is just madness to think that we can continue to go on with $250 million in deferred maintenance. That's what Carl Castle, when he originally came, and I'm being generous because I think it was $81 million is what he said, which was the deferred maintenance. Because he came to me. I mean, it was humbling after I'd left the assembly. And he became borough mayor. He had called me and said, I just want to let you know that I know this is your pet peeve. And let me tell you what I found out, because he dug into it. And I just thought, how do we as a community, because I'm still a borough taxpayer, I still own property in the Fairbanks North Star borough. How do we as a taxpayer fund and pay off, $250 million worth of deferred maintenance?
Well, I'll make it even more real for you. You are correct. It is $250 million. However, now that $250 million is reserved just to our school buildings. Just the school buildings are at $250 million.
So
according to the school district, $297 million in deferred maintenance in their buildings alone, which are our buildings. They belong to the Fairbanks North Star Borough.
Right.
The school district operates them for us. They take care of all the minor maintenance and stuff. We're supposed to be doing all the major capital improvements. So you are correct. It's $250 million, but it's only in our school building. So I don't even know what the number is. It's probably approaching $750 million if you take into, the Carlson Center, the Hammy Pool. It just goes on and on and on and on.
And there's your next piece of homework, Brett. Have somebody come to you and tell you what is the new number, because we need to know. All right, here we go. Jumping back into it. Let's do it.
The Michael Duke Show, proudly splitting the left versus right dichotomy. Yeah, I had to look that word up too. I don't think it means what he thinks it means. Here he is, though. That guy, Michael Dukes, the one with the show.
Okay, so Brett I just had a spike in blood pressure. Because Brett just said, well, the number you had before, that's, 280. He goes, well, now it's 297 million just in school buildings for deferred maintenance. That doesn't include all the other facilities, borough facilities, the Carlson Center, the Hammy Pool, Mary Cy, all the other buildings that the borough operates outside of the school district. I mean, it's a $300 million just in school district deferred maintenance alone. Bret, we can't continue, man. I mean, that just can't keep going on. What's going to happen when these buildings freeze up or something blows up or a roof comes off or something? I mean, what is going to happen? Nobody is crying foul about this. What's going on?
No, I just don't know that people, and most people don't really, and it's not their fault. Everybody does this. I used to do it. They just don't really pay attention to what goes on at the local government level. It's sad to say they're not informed. And I thought I was pretty informed 3 years ago when I got elected to this body. And boy, did I figure out really quick that I knew nothing. I mean, absolutely nothing. So every day it's just been more and more and more education, but when you're on the inside, once you get on the inside track of this, as you know, all of a sudden information is available to you, and it's valuable information, and it's information that the general public either doesn't have access to or doesn't have easy access to. I think they have access to a lot of this information, but as you know, once you're on the assembly, it just comes to you. It just magically falls in your lap. You don't even have to ask for it sometimes, and it just falls in your lap. But certainly if you want to ask, generally speaking, people make stuff. You ask the clerks, hey, I need this information. Guess what? They'll go find it for you and put it in your lap. The average citizen doesn't do that. They don't go down to the clerk's office or the mayor's office and say, hey, I need this number and I need it now, So yeah, I think people just got to pay closer attention. I think we've got to get our KIP program back to what it should have been. It should have been a long-term capital maintenance program, instead of a build new stuff. We need to shift our focus and our KIP to the maintenance thing. And if you start chipping away at this stuff little by little by little, it starts to add up. But right now we're not doing anything. It's all emergency appropriations. So now that money is coming from somewhere else, and a lot of it's coming from the general fund.
Right. Well, and KIP is, again, capital improvement projects. It's not capital construction projects, right?
Right.
I mean, that's the thing. But you said that there's only a $10 to $11 million every year in your KIP. I mean, dude, that's 30 years. If at 300 million, that's 30 years right there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know if we'd have to double the KIP to be able to catch up at this point.
Yeah, and every day something else is happening to our buildings. Like your car doesn't last forever. Your house doesn't last forever. You have to do this maintenance stuff. I'm in aviation. I'm an aircraft owner. And I've always said, if a car owner, an automobile owner, had to do what I have to do to my aircraft to keep them airworthy, you'd own one car your entire life. I mean, my 185 was built in 1976. It's a better airplane today than it was when it rolled off the assembly line at Cessna in 1976. Why?
Right.
Because I don't have a choice. I have to do a certain amount of maintenance, and I have to improve it in order to keep it airworthy.
Right.
So, but the government is great at building. We just don't seem to be very good at maintaining. And this isn't just in the Fairbanks North Star Borough. I'm sure you guys deal with it down there in the valley. The state, look at the state, build, and then they walk away from it, and all of a sudden, 50 years later, the whole thing implodes on them.
$8 billion in deferred maintenance in the state.
Mm-hmm.
$8 billion.
That's a big number.
Bret, we're down to the last 5 minutes here. Where are we going? What are you going to be facing? I mean, the puppy palace, the tax cap. I mean, all these things that we've got in front of us. What's your take on this before we let you go?
So I think I've been telling people, to me right now, it's all about the budget. And it's all about looking at these numbers, trying to make people understand where we're at, that we cannot continue down this path or there's going to be some sort of major change, and that major change is probably not what a lot of people in the Fairbanks North Star borough want to happen. I mean, you cannot keep presenting budgets and okaying budgets that are $10 million over. That this math equation solves itself if we continue down this path. So we are, again, the people of the Fairbanks North Star borough are going to have to make some choices. And those choices are, you're either going to have to tell your government to cool their jets, throttle things back here a little bit and get on top of this, or we're going to start using the words new sources of revenue. And that means taxes. The way our tax cap is, how it works is, in order to, for the government to bring in more money, we need more construction here. What drives, our tax cap up is new construction, bringing new buildings into our inventory. Right now, Fairbanks is not exactly in a boom time. Now, if this gas line goes, and I, I've been here 34 years, and I heard all about the gas line since I moved here. I will say I've never seen us closer. I think we are on the cusp of actually making this thing happen. If it does, that's going to bring in, some revenue for Fairbanks. If it doesn't, or something changes with the line, Fairbanks is just not in boom time. People are generally, our population is stagnant at best, and it's dropping at worst. And when that happens, our inventory goes down. We need new construction. So you need new housing, you need new commercial buildings. There are a lot of commercial buildings going up around town. Definitely noticed that. I think, and some of these are companies that their business names I don't recognize. So they're either coming out of Anchorage, they're building facilities up here, they're coming out of the lower 48. And I think some of these, there's a logistics company here I've never heard about. They're building a huge building just down the road from my shop. I think they're banking on the gas line. Well, it's good. It's going to be new, it's going to be new inventory, but you got to, if we're going to stay at 10 million over every single year, and we got to tackle some of this deferred maintenance, you're going to need a lot more inventory than what's
well, and by staying in that $10 million overage, you're going to make it less attractive, because people can understand that they can't keep doing that, and it'll be less attractive for new construction. I mean, I see this as an attack on the tax cap. I see this as intentional by the mayor to try and put us in that financial crisis and basically to bust the tax cap. That's what I see it as. And that's a problem. That's a problem for all of Fairbanks and the community. I mean, that was one of the reasons why I left, is because of the cost of government in that community. Bret, we're down to the last 60 seconds here. How do folks find out more about you? Who else are you supporting in an election? Go for it.
So definitely, working hard to try to get our other conservative candidates across the finish line here. So JT McComas Rowe, we kind of recruited him at the last minute. Great guy. Served on plating, served on planning. He's got some experience. We need to get Barbara Haney back on this body. Obviously, I'm going to get back on. We're very fortunate there. But even so, we're still going to be in the minority. Still going to be a 5-4 split.
Yeah.
But we've got a much better chance of moving the needle in a different direction. So anyway, the website is bretforassembly.com. I don't really need any donations, folks. I did pretty good at fundraising. I'm spending my campaign money right now on an advertising campaign trying to get people out and vote. And early voting started today.
Yep.
Regular voting is on October 7th. So get out and vote. All
right. Bret Rotermund, thank you so much. Folks, we're out of time. Tomorrow, Brad Keithley, Chris Story, The Michael Duke Show. We'll see you then. Common Sense Radio. All right, Bret, final bite at the apple. Anything we didn't cover, any topic you wanted to hit on that we missed, or anything you want to expand on, here's your chance.
Yeah, the early voting, we didn't go down this one. So an ordinance change this year, which was a good one, was we've had some concern from citizens about the Dominion voting machines that we use, that tally our votes, our paper ballots. So David Guttenberg introduced legislation, and Tammy Wilson managed to make a phenomenal amendment right at the end, and we passed this. So basically, for the folks out there, any of you that early vote, one contested race is going to be selected off of the ballot. Won't be mine. That's an uncontested race, but let's just say it's Barbara Haney's. So if Barbara Haney's, if her race is selected, all of those votes, all those paper ballots will be pulled from the machine. That race will be hand counted and tallied against the machine to see if the information is correct. That's happening during early voting. On a regular election day, 2 random precincts will be drawn from a hat, just 2. And again, 1 contested race in those districts, they will be hand counted as well. So basically the way I see this is I'm really encouraging people to get out and vote, especially the ones that question these electronic machines. Here's your chance to become part of the data.
Yeah.
And your vote will be hand tallied, and I think that's really important.
I would agree. I think it's a good opportunity to do it. That, and I think if you guys can align your elections with the MatSu and the rest
Yes.
of I think that's a huge thing as well. So I'm hoping you guys will take that on again as well. All right.
Yep.
Well, Bret, thank you so much for coming on board, my friend. It's always good to talk with you. We will catch you again soon.
Okay. Thank you, Michael. Really appreciate it.
Appreciate you coming on board. All right, folks, that does it for today. We're going to get out of here. We will see you guys tomorrow. Be kind, love one another, live well.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.